everyone, welcome back. You know we love a good deep dive. Well, today we're tackling a big one, the whole Tesla versus Edison thing.
Yeah, the ultimate innovator showdown, right?
Exactly. And to help us sort through all the hype, we've got this great article. It's called Debunking the Myths of Nikola, Tesla, and Thomas Edison.
Oh, I love that title already.
Right? Promises some serious myth busting. And you know the story that always gets me is Tesla, this brilliant visionary, crushed by the ruthless Edison, robbed of his ideas, left penniless.
Oh, yeah, that's like the classic internet version of the story.
Totally. So dramatic, right? But is there any truth to it?
Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Okay, so let's start with Edison. What does the article say about him? Was he really the bad guy in all this?
Well, first thing it does is debunk some of those wilder claims, like Edison stealing Tesla's ideas and leaving him destitute. It points out that a lot of those stories are exaggerated or just flat out fabricated.
Okay, so maybe not a mustache-twirling villain, but he was still a pretty shrewd businessman, right?
Oh, absolutely, no question about that. The article definitely acknowledges Edison's sharp business practices. He was a master of marketing, you know. He knew how to turn inventions into profitable businesses.
Give me an example.
Well, think about the light bulb. Edison staged these elaborate public demonstrations to really sell it to people.
Oh, right, to like ease their fears and create demand.
Exactly. It wasn't just the invention itself.
Yeah.
It was his savvy marketing that really led to its success.
That's fascinating, and honestly, it sounds a lot like how tech companies operate today, right? All about the hype.
You're spot on. Edison understood the power of perception and PR long before social media even existed.
Okay, so we're starting to get a more nuanced view of Edison. Now, what about Tesla?
Right, because he's often painted as this tragic hero, the misunderstood genius betrayed by the system.
Exactly, and I know the article delves into that too, right?
It does. And while it acknowledges Tesla's undeniable brilliance, it also challenges the idea of him as a flawless figure.
Really? So even Tesla, with his incredible mind, could be resistant to new ideas?
It might sound surprising, but yeah, even geniuses can have blind spots. The article highlights how Tesla clung to some outdated scientific views, even when newer research contradicted them.
Like what?
Well, he held on to a Victorian-era understanding of science, even as new discoveries were emerging.
Wow, so even the greatest minds can get stuck in their ways.
It's a good reminder for all of us, I think, to stay open to new information and challenge our own assumptions.
Totally. Okay, but speaking of Tesla's mind, the article also talks about his working style, right?
It does, and it raises this fascinating point about how his preference for working alone might have actually limited him.
Wait, seriously? I always thought collaboration was key to innovation.
It absolutely is. The article even uses this striking analogy.
Yeah?
It talks about ideas having sex.
Whoa, okay, hold on. Did I hear that right?
You did.
Yeah.
The idea is that just like genetic diversity drives evolution, the cross-pollination of ideas through collaboration is crucial for progress.
Okay, that's a vivid analogy. I'll give you that. But was Tesla completely isolated? He must have interacted with other scientists sometimes.
He did, but he much preferred to work alone, often missing out on the benefits of brainstorming and bouncing ideas off others.
I see your point. It's like he was working with one hand tied behind his back. But what about his incredible ability to visualize inventions in his mind? Didn't that make up for it?
Right. He could practically build entire machines in his head before even putting pen to paper.
Amazing.
It was definitely a source of his genius. But the article suggests it might have also been a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, sometimes his mental models didn't quite match up with reality. He'd get so attached to his visualizations that he sometimes resisted empirical evidence if it contradicted his internal model.
So even with his incredible mental capacity, he could get stuck in a rut.
It happens to the best of us.
That's a good reminder for all of us to stay flexible in our thinking and be willing to adjust our course when the evidence demands it.
Absolutely. Speaking of adjusting our understanding, let's tackle one of the most enduring myths surrounding this rivalry, the story of the $50,000 bonus.
Oh yeah, that's the one that always gets me fired up. Edison promises Tesla this huge bonus, then backs out of the deal. Talk about a betrayal.
It's a classic underdog story, right? But the article really digs into this one and finds some major holes.
Like what?
Well, for starters, the supposed deal wasn't even with Edison directly. It was with Tesla's manager.
Really? So maybe there was some miscommunication or something?
It's possible, but here's the bigger issue. There's absolutely no documentation to support this claim. No contracts, no letters, no witnesses, nothing.
No paper trail at all. That's pretty suspicious.
Right. And the final nail in the coffin for this myth is that the famous quote attributed to Edison, where he supposedly dismisses the whole thing as American humor. That, quote, only appeared decades after the alleged incident.
So it sounds like this bonus betrayal is more of a tall tale than a historical fact.
Exactly. Shows how these narratives can get distorted over time, and how easily we can fall for a good story even if the evidence is shaky.
Well, I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed. I was really rooting for Tesla to get his due, but I appreciate getting the facts straight. What else does the article uncover about Tesla's work?
It goes into his fascination with high-voltage electricity, and specifically his dream of wireless power transmission.
Oh, right. Wasn't he obsessed with those massive Tesla coils?
He was. And while his vision of a world powered wirelessly hasn't quite materialized in the way he imagined, it speaks to his incredible foresight and ambition.
It's amazing to think he was already grappling with this concept over 100 years ago. It's still a major challenge today.
I know, it's mind-blowing.
Okay, so we've debunked some myth, and we're starting to see both Edison and Tesla in a new light. But what about the famous war of currents? That's where Tesla really took on Edison head-to-head, right?
That's the popular image, but the article clarifies Tesla's actual role.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It turns out the main conflict wasn't between Tesla and Edison directly, but between Edison and George Westinghouse.
Wait, so Tesla wasn't the central figure in the war of currents?
He was involved, but not in the leading role that's often portrayed. The real battle was between Westinghouse, who supported Tesla's AC system, and Edison, who was heavily invested in DC technology.
Okay, so it was more like Westinghouse versus Edison.
Yeah,
With Tesla playing a supporting role.
that's a more accurate way to put it.
Wow, this is turning out to be way more complex than I thought.
It's a fascinating chapter in the history of electricity.
For sure. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've debunked myths, clarified roles, and uncovered some surprising facts about both Tesla and Edison. What does all this tell us about their lasting impact?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a perfect place to pick up in part 2.
Absolutely. We've explored the myths and misconceptions, but now it's time to delve into their actual legacies and how their work continues to shape the world today. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Can't wait.
Okay, so we've done some serious myth busting, but now I'm curious about their actual impact. Beyond all the rivalry and hype, what's their real legacy?
It's a great question. Because in the end, these were pioneers. They fundamentally shaped the tech world we live in.
Absolutely. So where do we even begin? Maybe with Edison. What stands out to you as his biggest contribution?
The article really highlights Edison's ability to not just invent, but to bring those inventions to the masses. He wasn't just tinkering in a lab. He was building industries.
So he had that entrepreneurial vision, seeing the big picture.
Exactly. He understood that innovation isn't just about brilliant ideas. It's about practicality, affordability, making things accessible to everyone.
Like the light bulb or the phonograph, things that change daily life.
Precisely. Those weren't just novelties. They were game changers.
And he wasn't just making gadgets. He was building systems around them. Like the electrical grid we rely on today. That was largely his vision, right?
You got it. Edison saw the big picture. He didn't just want to create a light bulb. He wanted to create an infrastructure to bring electric light to everyone.
Wow, that's thinking big. Okay, so Edison gets points for practicality and impact. But what about Tesla? His ideas were often way ahead of their time.
Oh, absolutely. Tesla was a true visionary. He pushed the boundaries of what people thought was possible.
Like with alternating current and wireless communication, things we totally take for granted now.
Exactly. He was working on concepts that wouldn't be fully realized for decades. Even today, we're still exploring some of his more radical ideas, like wireless energy transfer.
It's mind-blowing to think about. What do you think Tesla would make of our world today?
It's a fascinating question. Would he be thrilled with our progress in some areas? Or frustrated that his vision hasn't fully materialized?
Right, like wireless communication is everywhere, but wireless power is still this elusive dream.
It really makes you wonder what he could have achieved with more support and resources during his lifetime.
Yeah, what if? But even without achieving all his goals, Tesla's influence on technology is undeniable. So it seems like both Edison and Tesla left their mark, but in very different ways. Edison, the master of bringing inventions to the masses, and Tesla, the visionary, pushing the limits of what's possible.
It's a fascinating contrast, isn't it?
It is. And it reminds us that there's no single path to innovation. Sometimes it's about practicality and execution, and sometimes it's about bold imagination and risk-taking.
You're right. And remember that ideas having sex analogy. Maybe it's also about finding that sweet spot between collaboration and individual brilliance.
That's a great point. Tesla
Right.
might have benefited from more teamwork, but his solitary nature probably also fueled his unique thinking.
Exactly, it's a delicate balance. Too much isolation can stifle innovation, but so can too much conformity.
And this goes back to something else the article emphasized. Even though they were rivals, Edison and Tesla were part of a larger scientific community. Their ideas didn't exist in a vacuum.
Right, they were influenced by the intellectual landscape of their time, and even their competition pushed progress forward.
It's like that saying, iron sharpens iron. Sometimes conflict can spark innovation.
It's exactly.
Okay, so we've got these two titans of innovation, Edison, the pragmatic builder, and Tesla, the visionary dreamer. But how does all this connect to us today? I mean, most of us aren't trying to invent the next world-changing technology.
That's true, but the lessons we can learn from them go beyond science and technology. Think about it. How often do we get stuck in our own mental models, resistant to new ideas or different perspectives?
Oh, all the time, especially with social media algorithms reinforcing our biases.
Exactly. So what if we took a page from Edison and Tesla and actively sought out diverse perspectives, embraced the friction of different ideas?
That's a powerful idea. Instead of shutting down opposing viewpoints, what if we saw them as opportunities for growth and learning?
Precisely. It's in that clash of ideas that true innovation often happens. And that applies to all areas of our lives, not just science.
So whether we're at work or in our relationships, a willingness to collaborate and embrace different perspectives can open up new possibilities.
I love that. It's about expanding our mental horizons and challenging our assumptions.
It's about reclaiming that childlike sense of wonder.
Yes, always questioning, always exploring, always open to new discoveries.
This has been so insightful. But there's one more thing about Tesla that fascinates me. His unwavering commitment to his vision, even when everyone doubted him.
You mean his dedication to wireless energy?
Exactly. He never gave up, even when people thought he was crazy.
That refusal to give up on his dreams is truly inspiring.
So are you saying that sometimes a little stubbornness can be a good thing?
In the right context, absolutely. It takes tenacity and belief to keep going when things get tough.
So even though Tesla faced countless obstacles, and some of his ideas might have been a bit out there, his persistence is something we can all learn from.
Absolutely. That spirit of relentless pursuit pushing beyond the limits. It's what connects Tesla to another visionary figure, Jules Verne.
Wait, Jules Verne, the science fiction author, what does he have to do with Tesla?
More than you might think.
All right, back to this Tesla-Jules Verne connection. I'm still processing it.
Well, it's pretty amazing. Tesla himself said that Jules Verne was a huge inspiration for him.
So he was like a sci-fi fanboy who made those futuristic tales a reality.
Yeah, you could put it that way. But it's deeper than just fandom. Verne and Tesla both believed in the power of human ingenuity to achieve what seems impossible.
They both saw the future even when others thought they were crazy.
Exactly. They weren't afraid to dream big, to envision things that seemed like pure fantasy at the time.
And those dreams led to some pretty groundbreaking inventions, right?
Absolutely.
It makes you think about all the things we take for granted today that were once considered outlandish ideas.
It's true, and it reminds us that every revolutionary invention, every world-changing idea started with imagination.
So we have to dream it before we can build it.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. But let's be real here. Not all of us are going to invent the next iPhone or cure cancer. How can we apply this Tesla-Verne mindset to our everyday lives?
It's about cultivating that sense of wonder and possibility in everything we do, challenging the status quo, questioning assumptions, and refusing to accept limitations.
So even if we're not building spaceships or designing robots, we can still approach our work, our relationships, our hobbies with that same curiosity.
Precisely. It's about embracing a growth mindset, always learning, always exploring.
Never losing that childlike sense of wonder.
That's the key.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Tesla and Edison, I think the biggest takeaway for me is this. Don't be afraid to dream big challenge conventions and embrace collaboration. And hey, maybe pick up a Jules Verne book for inspiration.
I love it. Who knows what incredible innovations are waiting just around the corner.
That's a great thought. And that's a wrap on our deep dive. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of Tesla and Edison. Remember, the future is full of possibilities, so keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries. Thanks for listening.